Love was supposed to be simple. At least, that's what I believed before everything crumbled beneath me. Before betrayal twisted its knife deep into my spine, leaving wounds that would never heal. Emily had been my everything. From the moment we met, she captivated me with her infectious laughter, her sharp wit, and the way she made me feel like the only man in the world. 5 years together, countless memories, and an engagement that felt like the beginning of forever. She said yes without hesitation when I proposed under the city's glowing skyline, tears shimmering in her emerald eyes. That night I thought I had won life's greatest prize. My younger brother, Daniel, had always been the golden one, the charming, reckless, effortlessly magnetic sibling who never had to try to be adored. He walked into a room and people gravitated toward him. Women fell at his feet. Opportunities landed in his lap. Yet, despite his flaws, I never envied him. We were family, bound by blood and loyalty. I trusted him completely. That trust shattered just hours before my wedding. Lucas, my best man, found me nursing a drink in my hotel suite, savoring the last few moments of solitude before the chaos of matrimony took over. The glow of the city flickered beyond the window, its endless hum a comforting backdrop. "We need to talk." His voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. I turned, frowning. "What's wrong?" Lucas hesitated. His fingers tightened around his phone before he handed it to me. I didn't want to believe it either. "But you need to see this before tomorrow." Curiosity twisted into dread as I took the device. A video played. The footage was grainy, but the sounds were unmistakable. Breathless moans, whispered names, tangled limbs in the dark. My pulse pounded against my temples as my gaze locked onto the figures in the bed. Emily and Daniel. Air refused to fill my lungs. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. This couldn't be real. Not them. Not her. I forced my voice to work. Where did you get this?" Lucas exhaled sharply. "A friend saw them at the hotel last night, thought something felt off, so he followed. He recorded this just outside the window." Bile rose in my throat. My fiancée, the woman I had planned my entire future with, had spent the night before our wedding in bed with my brother. Heat roared through me, scorching away every illusion of love I had ever held, every shared kiss, every whispered promise, every dream of forever, obliterated in an instant. They didn't even try to hide it. My voice came out hoarse, raw. Lucas hesitated. "There's more." I forced myself to meet his gaze. "She's pregnant," he said, barely above a whisper. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table, my legs threatening to give out. Pregnant. My mind reeled, grasping for any possibility that didn't end in the worst conclusion. But no matter how I twisted it, the answer remained the same. If she was carrying a child and she had been sleeping with my brother. The realization hit like a sledgehammer. The baby wasn't mine. Rage flooded my veins, swift and merciless. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. This wasn't just betrayal. It was destruction. The kind that left no survivors. Memories slashed through me. The way Emily had looked at me just yesterday, her lips curving into a soft smile as she whispered about our future. The way Daniel had clapped me on the back, pretending to be the supportive brother, all while sneaking behind my back with the one person who should have been mine. I had been played. A bitter laugh escaped my lips, hollow and sharp. They must think I'm a fool. Lucas stayed silent. He didn't need to say anything. We both knew they had gambled on my ignorance, betting I would never find out. But they had miscalculated. A dark calm settled over me, the initial wave of devastation hardening into something far more dangerous. They wanted to do this behind my back. My voice steadied, cold and deliberate. Then they're going to find out what happens when you cross the wrong man. Lucas studied me carefully. "What are you thinking?" I lifted the glass of whiskey to my lips, letting the burn ground me. Then I set it down with purpose. I'm thinking the wedding is still on. Lucas's brows shot up. You're not actually going to... Oh, I'm walking down that aisle. My smirk was razor sharp. But not to say I do. My brother and my fiancée had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Now it was my turn to return the favor. The morning of the wedding arrived, wrapped in a deceptive sense of normalcy. Sunlight poured through the tall windows of the suite, casting golden hues over the polished floor. The scent of fresh roses filled the air, mingling with the subtle spice of cologne and champagne. Everything appeared perfect, untouched by the filth that lurked beneath the surface. I stood before the mirror, adjusting the cufflinks Emily had gifted me weeks ago. The irony twisted my stomach. Her initials were engraved on the silver, a symbol of devotion that had meant nothing to her. I ran my fingers over the metal, my grip tightening before I set them aside. Today wasn't about sentiment. It was about justice. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Lucas stepped in, his expression unreadable. He closed the door behind him and exhaled. Are you sure about this? I met his gaze through the reflection. More than ever. He ran a hand through his hair. They have no idea? None. My lips curled into a smirk. They think they got away with it. Lucas shook his head, admiration flickering behind the concern in his eyes. You're playing with fire. Good, I murmured. Let them burn. Downstairs, guests gathered in the grand ballroom, their laughter and excitement filling the space. White roses and flickering candles adorned the aisles. A string quartet played softly, setting the stage for what should have been the happiest day of my life. Emily stood at the end of the hallway, radiant in her gown, her golden hair cascaded in waves, her eyes bright with anticipation. But behind that veil of innocence, I saw her for what she truly was, a liar, a cheat. Her gaze met mine, and she smiled, stepping closer. You look incredible. So did she. If I could forget the image of her tangled with my brother, her body arching beneath his touch. I forced a smile, letting my fingers brush over her cheek. So do you. She leaned into my touch, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath my skin. I can't believe this day is finally here. Neither could I. Daniel approached from the side, dressed in his groomsman attire, his grin easy, confident. There wasn't a trace of guilt in his eyes, not even a flicker of hesitation. He had stolen the one thing that was supposed to be mine, and he had done it without remorse. I turned toward him, clapping a hand on his shoulder. You ready to watch your big brother get married? His smirk widened. Wouldn't miss it for the world. I bit back the venom that clawed at my throat. Soon he would regret every smug word. The ceremony began. Guests rose as Emily walked down the aisle, glowing under the soft light. My mother dabbed at her eyes, overwhelmed with emotion. My father beamed with pride. Friends and family watched with adoration, believing they were witnessing a fairy tale. I let them. The officiant spoke, his voice carrying through the hushed space. Vows were exchanged, filled with empty promises and pretty lies. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she slipped the ring onto my finger. Perhaps some part of her felt the weight of her deception, though I doubted it. When my turn came, I took a steady breath, glancing at Lucas in the crowd. He gave a subtle nod. Everything was set. I turned back to Emily, holding her hands gently. Before I say these words, I need to share something. Murmurs rippled through the guests. Emily's brows knitted together. What is it? I exhaled, making sure my voice carried. This woman standing before me, the one I was supposed to marry, has been sleeping with my brother. Gasps exploded through the room. A distant clatter of silverware echoed as someone knocked over a glass. Emily's face drained of color. What? I tightened my grip on her hands, my smile unwavering. You heard me." My gaze swept over the crowd, letting the truth settle. And if that wasn't enough, she's pregnant, but not with my child. Pandemonium erupted. Guests whispered, some outright shouting in disbelief. My mother's hand flew to her chest. My father's jaw clenched. Emily stumbled back, her lips trembling. This isn't true." I pulled out my phone, tapping the screen. The video Lucas had shown me played across the large projector behind us. The moans, the gasps, the unmistakable betrayal. Daniel shot up from his seat, rage twisting his features. "Turn that off." Too late. Everyone saw. Emily let out a strangled sob, covering her mouth. I turned toward my brother, tilting my head. "Why? Ashamed of your masterpiece?" His fists clenched. "You bastard." I stepped closer, my voice low, deadly. "You're the bastard here, Daniel." Security moved in, tension crackling like a live wire. Emily reached for me, tears streaking her face. "Please, I can explain." I laughed, a sharp, cold sound. "Oh, I'm sure you can. But I don't care." I turned on my heel, walking toward the exit. "Enjoy each other. You deserve it." The last thing I heard before stepping out into the sun was the sound of my mother's broken sobs and Daniel's curses. Let them rot. The fallout from the wedding disaster was as brutal as I had anticipated. The moment I stepped out of that ballroom, my phone erupted with calls, messages flooding in like a relentless tide. Family, friends, even old acquaintances who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly had something to say. Some were in shock. Others, like my mother, pleaded for an explanation. But I ignored them all. Let them sit with the truth. Lucas drove me away from the venue, the tension in the car thick enough to choke on. He kept glancing over, no doubt expecting me to explode, but I was eerily calm. Too calm. "You did it," he finally said, breaking the silence. I nodded, staring out the window at the city blurring past. "Yeah? Feel better?" I thought about it. The rage, the pain, the endless nights spent wondering how long it had been going on. How many times she had slipped into his arms while pretending to love me. It should have broken me. But instead, watching them crumble had been liberating. "I will," I murmured. Lucas pulled up to my apartment. "You should lay low for a bit. They're gonna come after you." I smirked. "Let them." The second I stepped inside, I locked the door behind me and exhaled. The silence was deafening. No wedding, no honeymoon, no fiancé waiting with open arms. Just me and the aftermath of betrayal. But I wasn't done. Grabbing my laptop, I logged into an email account I had created weeks ago, one specifically designed for the final piece of my revenge. Attached was every piece of evidence I had, screenshots, videos, texts. I had been meticulous, gathering everything in secret while they carried on, convinced they were untouchable. The recipient? Daniel's boss. See, my brother had more to lose than just his dignity. He had been climbing the corporate ladder, flaunting himself as the perfect family man to secure a major promotion. His company prided itself on integrity, on character, and now they would see him for who he really was. I hit send. Within minutes, my phone buzzed. Not from Daniel, not from Emily, but from my mother. I sighed and answered. "Hello?" Her voice was raw, thick with tears. "What have you done?" I leaned against the counter. "Told the truth." She sniffled. "You humiliated your brother. You humiliated all of us." A bitter chuckle escaped me. Oh, so my humiliation meant nothing? The wedding, the lies, the betrayal, that was fine, right? But when I expose them, suddenly I'm the villain. She hesitated. It wasn't right. I clenched my jaw. Neither was what they did. There was a pause before she spoke again, softer. "Your father is furious." Daniel left the venue in a rage. "Emily," she collapsed. They had to take her to the hospital. Good, but I didn't say it. She brought this on herself, I replied instead. And Daniel? He made his choices. You should have come to us, she whispered. I scoffed. And what? You would have fixed it? Told me to forgive him? Told me to marry her anyway? Silence. I sighed. I need time, Mom. And so do you. Before she could respond, I ended the call. Hours passed, my inbox filled with angry messages from Daniel. Emily sent a string of texts, alternating between apologies and blaming me for everything. I deleted them all. Then, late that night, the final message came in. Daniel, you ruined my life. I stared at the screen, my lips curling. Me. No. You ruined your own life. I just made sure everyone saw it. Days passed and the dust refused to settle. The scandal spread like wildfire, weaving its way through every corner of our lives. Daniel's company wasted no time in dealing with the disgrace. His spotless image had been his greatest asset, but now it was in shambles. I heard through mutual acquaintances that the promotion had been snatched away. Worse, rumors swirled about him being placed on suspension. Good. Emily, on the other hand, had turned into a ghost. The hospital visit had been nothing more than a stunt, a desperate attempt to make me feel guilty. But guilt had no place in my heart for her. She tried reaching out, pleading, even threatening at times. Each message, each voicemail, went unanswered. Then came the final piece of my revenge. One night, Lucas and I sat at a bar, nursing drinks as we watched a group of women celebrating a bachelorette party at the far end of the room. Laughter and music filled the air, but my mind remained focused. You really did it? Lucas mused, swirling the whiskey in his glass. Every bit of it. I smirked. Almost. He raised an eyebrow. What's left? I pulled out my phone, opened a secure folder, and slid it across the table. His eyes widened as he scanned the contents. Holy shit, he muttered. You found these? I nodded. Emily and Daniel weren't as careful as they thought. These texts, the ones where they mocked me, where she told him she was only ever with me for the security. I leaned back, my grin widening. They were never meant for my eyes. But now they'll be for everyone's. I scheduled the email, attaching every screenshot, every cruel message. It wasn't enough that they had suffered privately. They needed to feel what I had felt. Exposed, ridiculed, shattered. The email was set to go out to everyone in our social circle, family, friends, colleagues. There would be no more hiding, no more pretending. By morning, the last of their dignity would be stripped away. I took a sip of my drink, my chest lighter than it had been in months. Lucas let out a low whistle. Damn. Remind me never to cross you. I chuckled. Just don't betray me and you'll be fine. The night stretched on, laughter filling the space between us. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. By dawn, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Daniel, you bastard, you'll pay for this. Emily, please, make it stop. I can't take this. Me, you should have thought about that before you slept with my brother. I blocked them both. Then, without a second thought, I deleted their numbers. They no longer mattered, and neither did the past. With the sunrise came a new beginning, one where I was no longer the fool, no longer the man they had used. I had won.